So, as I said in my What I'll Be Watching video, I desperately wanted a banana fish replacement. And this isn't quite that, but it sort of feels like if you mixed aspects of banana fish with aspects of a Yakuza game, and I guess if that's your thing. Anyway, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, hi, my name's JoJo. I talk about seasonal anime content every single day. The seasonal anime train has no brakes, so I don't get none. But with that said, if you are new here, hit that sub button. If you haven't done so yet, hit that dang sub button. And of course, after you hit that sub button, make sure that you ring that bell to let all of AniTube know you are here. Especially lately, YouTube seems to be like really screwing with channels who don't have, whose viewers don't have the bell turned on. So if you haven't done so yet, really make sure you hit that bell. It's seriously important now. So help your boy out, hit that sub button, ring that bell, and without further ado, we're gonna talk all about IKEBUKURO Westgate Park Episode 1, Northgate Smoke Tower. Alright, so out of the gate, since I realized the opening of the video makes it seem like maybe I didn't like this episode, I really liked this episode. There is one aspect of the episode that I thought was funny. As a Canadian, you already probably know what it is. If you heard me say the words Canadian and you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. I was like, really? That's it? But I will say that this might be one of my favorite premieres so far. I think in terms of writing, it's the strongest. Don't get me wrong, I loved stuff like Higurashi. Obviously, I'm into like Haikyuu as well. Like, it's like, obviously there's shows that I adore. But with IKEBUKURO Westgate Park, I wanted a banana fish, all I wanted it to do is fill the hole that banana fish has left in my heart, but it didn't quite do that. But what it instead did was give me sort of a mix of Yakuza and banana fish, which I am down for. I should say that I'm aware that a lot of people compare the series to Durarara, and if you've been here on the channel for a while, you'll know I don't really like Durarara like that. Like, there's parts of Durarara that I enjoy. Like, I like Celti a lot and the doc. But other than that, I didn't really like most of the characters. I felt like it was kind of scattershot. Whereas, like, here, I already like the characters that, like, especially the main two. Like, I didn't care about the quote-unquote main characters in Durarara, like, at all. So here, I was like, oh, I really like these two. Like, I really like King, and I really like Makoto. So I was already kind of intrigued. I already want to know more about characters like Big Ray and 01. I almost called him 02. So already I'm more like kind of tied into the show than I was with something like Durarara. And again, if you like Durarara, absolutely not taking anything away from you. I can respect that it's a well-written show. It just didn't click with me. Whereas this, right away, did click with me. So, hooray! There is definitely some Durarara vibes, though. Like, if you've seen the show, the mere concept of the G-Boys will seem very familiar. You know what I mean? Like, it is, I was like, dang, it is very similar. Although I believe Durarara took inspiration from this instead of the other way around. I don't remember which came out first. Because this is a adaptation of a television show, which is neat. I believe that this was like a J-drama or something that got flipped into a manga, and then this is either an adaptation of the manga. I think it's an adaptation of the manga and not the original series. I don't know. It's very confusing. If there's any IKEBUKURO Westgate Park fans, then yeah, please let me know, because I'm a little bit confused on like what it's adapting. I guess it's kind of adapting both and doing its own thing. I'm not super sure, but regardless, as I said, I was very much into it, and that does come down to the vibe of the show. It really does feel like, in regards to the drug aspect, it does feel a lot like Banana Fish. If you remember Banana Fish, like, they're trying to stop this like crazy drug called Banana Fishu. And Banana Fishu makes you go crazy, right? Like, it makes you kind of unstable and unwell. And that is indeed like what is going on here. But not to bury the lead or anything, it's weed, which is like, that's not how that works. And as a Canadian, I'm like, y'all probably be drinking booze in this show, and that's like way worse. But mind you, this was a different time. This was a different country, different era. So this was like, I believe this came out like 2000s, like early 2000s. So I get it. I totally get it. But even in Canada by that point, Even though it was still illegal back then, it was mostly like, is chill. So I was kind of surprised to see that that's what they were stopping. And there is even like a leaf at one point, and I was like, please tell me that's not where we're going. And that is where we're going. So I was like, okay, then why was he freaking out? That's not what had happened. I have to assume that that's not the only thing that they were making in that specific shop. I have to assume there's other stuff that they were working on. Otherwise, that's insanely goofy. But regardless, it doesn't matter. It was a different time, different country. I respect it. But still, the idea of like stopping getting those off the street, I appreciate. The fact that there's like this gang who works, like sort of in the shadows, but still wants to keep their area clean. It does remind me a lot of Ash's gang, where Ash's gang was trying to stop like certain things from happening. Like Ash was like benevolent, Mind you, the gang doesn't start that way. They kind of end up that way as things go. Whatever, you know what I mean. With Yakuza, the Yakuza vibe I get specifically from like the setting and the atmosphere. IKEBUKURO, the way that they describe it, feels a lot like Kamurocho Ocho from Yakuza. It's not like one-to-one. In fact, I believe, I looked this up now, Kamurocho Ocho is actually inspired by Kabukicho, the Kabukicho district in Tokyo. So it's not like one-to-one, but that is kind of the vibe it gave me, like this sort of like sprawling city, like this like district sort of comes to life at night, and it has like all these different like areas and places that you can go to. There's like the nightlife is popping, people be everywhere, and there's a story for every citizen. Like with Yakuza, it always feels like everybody has something going on. Like everybody has their own thing they're dealing with. Everybody has their own story, and that's kind of the vibe that I got from IWGP. It definitely felt like the city itself was alive in the same way something like a place like Kamurocho Ocho comes to life in the Yakuza games. Even the G-Boys, to an extent, felt sort of Yakuza-ish in the sense that like Makoto doesn't really work with them, but ends up like kind of drawn into their shenanigans. It's very Kiryu. But it's the G-Boys do, and I again, I may not be a fan, but I totally respect that the G-Boys absolutely do feel like a Durarara nod. Or maybe Durarara was a nod to the G-Boys. Whatever. It feels like the G-Boys do remind me a lot of the Dollars, like very much so. Where it's sort of like they, when the dude's running through the city, the G-Boys are like everywhere. And it's not like gender exclusive. We see some female G-Boys in the crowd as well. So you love to see it. But yeah, it feels as though like the entire city is the G-Boys in the same way like it felt like the entire city was the Dollars in Durarara. So yeah, I do think that there's definitely like some similar vibes, and for this particular adaptation, it felt like they were really leaning into that. And honestly, I thought it worked. The vibe is easily my favorite part of the show. I felt like I wanted to like jump into the world of IKEBUKURO, Westgate Park, and like really live in that version of IKEBUKURO and really experience that, because it felt fun and exciting, but also like dangerous and like ooh, like what's going on, and like mysterious and shady, and it's one of those like environments where it's like, oh, I would love to be there for like a hot second and then jump back into my normal life. But yeah, the vibe of the show, I don't know, I really vibe with it. I vibe with the vibe. It is a vibe! And as I said, I felt like the writing was really strong. Stopping Northgate Smoke Tower is like the first thing we do in the show, and it's honestly a pretty genius setup to sort of just drop the viewer into the action, and as well we get a ride-along character who would ask the questions that the audience would need asked, but it doesn't feel out of place. Like, it doesn't feel like, dude, you're in that world, you should know that. As an example, even though I loved Burn the Witch, there's a few characters who ask questions that it's like, you live in that world, should you not know what that is? I believe my boy's name was Balgo in Burn the Witch, and he was asking questions that I'm like, you should really like know what that is. Like, you know what I mean? Where like a character within the world is asking questions that you would assume that they should know. And with IKEBUKURO, they do have a character who asks those questions, but it makes sense that they would ask said questions. That character, the ride-along character being Mion, this like 12-year-old whose mom was hit by the dude who was freaking out at the beginning of the episode. So she tries to set Northgate Smoke Tower on fire, like the building. Unfortunately, the way the building is set up, it's not just that one building. It's not just that one shop that operates there. It's like several shops. And Makoto even says later, like, you could have burned everybody else down with them. That's not vengeance, that's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, he's saying, like, he's trying to guide her. And, like, Makoto's a really interesting character. We'll get to him a little bit later. But I do think, like, the setup is genius. Like, just sort of plopping us into the action so we kind of get an idea of, like, what it's going to feel like. And then we get our ride-along character who is directly involved with the action that just took place, but is asking questions that she would ask. She's a kid and not from Ikebukuro. So not only is she not from that city, she's too young to really know what a lot of this stuff is. So she kind of gets involved and wrapped up in all this, and so asks the questions that maybe an audience member would ask. If you're not familiar with Ikebukuro, if you're not familiar with some of these topics, you would be asking those questions. So I thought it was really smart the way that that was handled. Also, this enables us to meet all the other major players in the story. Well, maybe not major players, but at least players in the story. You get characters like Big Ray, 01, Hiroto, Yoshioka. You meet them as you go. Big Ray being Makoto's like buddy who's involved with the cops. 01 is their hacker friend. Hiroto is King's like right-hand man. And then Yoshioka is the old cop who sort of like kept an eye and helped set Makoto on the right path. So he remembers Makoto when he was more of a delinquent than he is currently. And you get to see these characters through Mion's eyes. And I really thought that was super sharp way to handle the story. And again, yeah, it is a little bit funny that like at the end of the day, like they pin like weed on them because it's like, I mean, that doesn't seem like a big deal where I'm from in this timeline, but like, or this like current era of time that we're living in. But again, in Japan, it's a very, very different experience with that particular topic, so I can respect that. I know what the laws in Japan are in regards to that, so I get it, but to me it is just a little bit funny. I'm like, oh no, not weed. What? But still, as I said earlier, I have to assume that it's more than just that, otherwise that's a little bit goofy. I get that it was made at a different time, but you're now adapting it in 2020, so I assume that there's more serious stuff that they are selling there as well. But I did say that we were going to talk a little bit about Makoto, and that time is now. We're going to do a little bit of character analysis. We're going to do a little bit of design time, taking a look at Makoto and what his design can tell us. I will say that the characters in the show do the thing that, even though I love to see it, I also dread it at the same time, because it means like, oh crap, I may have to do design time every episode, and I don't know how to feel about that. What I mean is, when you see a character design, especially in animation in general, like cartoons, anime, whatever, usually you don't really have to worry about the characters changing clothes. It is just generally accepted that the characters will wear the same thing over and over again. They're like all minimalists, and they all wear the same clothes. That's not the case with Ikebukuro Westgate Park, and Makoto does wear several different outfits, but the one that I kind of honed in on as like, okay, of the different outfits, this is the one that matches the other colors that he wears, and that's the Smoking Kills shirt, which now that I think about it is also really funny. But I should say that before we dive into the outfit itself, I should say his full name, Makoto Majima. Makoto Majima. Now, if you have played the Yakuza games, you'll know that Makoto Majima is a ship in Yakuza, specifically Yakuza 0. Makoto is the name of the girl that you save, and Majima is the name of the dude you play as when you're saving Makoto. So, like, did Yakuza name the Makoto character from 0 after Makoto Majima? Did that happen? That could not have happened. That is an amazing coincidence, though. This man's name is Makoto Majima. What a beautiful... I am going to pretend like this character is actually the illegitimate son of Makoto and Majima, and you cannot convince me otherwise. It is what it is. It is what it is. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that character design, shall we? He has this sort of light brown hair. And to me, the light brown hair, as I've talked about before, the light brown hair, light brown eyes, when it comes to a character design, instantly I associate dependable with that character, even if that character will later prove me wrong. Dependable, like, when it comes to Brown is typically seen as one of two things, right? In a character design, you are either trying to indicate that the character is boring, because, like, no offense, I have brown eyes, do not be offended. If you have brown hair or brown eyes in your character design, it either is meant to represent that you are boring or that you are dependable. There are some other variations on what that color means when you see it, but usually it's either boring or dependable. I don't know why brown is always seen as being boring. A lot of like my favorite aesthetics typically include brown, like a lot of rustics and stuff like that. The rustic look usually has a lot of brown in it, but society has deemed brown to be boring, I guess. So in this case, I do think it's not really meant to represent that he is boring, since Makoto lives a very exciting life. I would say more so that the design is trying to tell you that he is dependable. So when you see him, you feel like you can rely on him. And then you get to his eyes, which I'll admit I had to look at multiple different shots at multiple different times of the day in the setting of the show. And I kept coming back to the fact that I couldn't tell if it was brown or burgundy. His eyes kind of flipped back and forth for me, where I'm like, sometimes they look brown, sometimes like a deep, deep brown, or other times they look like sort of like a weird burgundy, like a dark burgundy. So I ended up just going with brownish burgundy eyes, so I just mixed the two together. And with that, we get, when we see him, like, imagine Makoto staring at you, what you would see are intense but understanding eyes, and again, dependable. And I do think that that actually does fit the character. Makoto does come off as intense if he's not helping you specifically. He is an incredibly capable dude who does want to whoop some ass. Like, we see him drop kick a dude at one point, and he calls that fun. Like, he says to King at one point, you always steal the fun part. So we do know that he can be intense and a bit of a badass, but we also know that he's understanding. When he meets Mion, he wants to help her, and he is dependable since King is constantly relying on him, as we find out through the show. So I do think whether or not the eyes are supposed to be a deep brown or a weird kind of burgundy or brownish burgundy, that is a thing. Regardless, I think that analysis still works. And then you have the black Smoking Kill shirt, which in hindsight is really funny. But I love that shirt, and I kind of want to buy that shirt, if I'm honest. I like just to have it. I think it's cool. But I think the black Smoking Kill shirt is supposed to show that the character does have this sort of checkered, mysterious past. Black as a color either means like darkness or evil, or in some cases, mystery, right? Now, purple also is associated with mystery, but black is usually like if purple, like a purple mystery is more of like a fun kind of mystery, right? Whereas a black one is more sort of like grim. And I do think that Makoto's past, like knowing what we know about the character, probably has some more grim moments. So I think the black shirt is sort of to indicate like he has a sort of dark past. The Smoking Kills part is mainly probably just to tie into the episode's theme and is kind of fun, actually. I do want that shirt. But note that he wears an orange long sleeve underneath that shirt. So I think the sort of dark mysteriousness is basically to veil a sort of optimistic side. Orange is typically seen as an energetic, youthful color, but more so it's meant to show a sort of optimism to a specific character. Orange, at least from what I've seen, is sort of like the upbeat side of a character, an optimistic character. The first thing I think of is Crash Bandicoot, but even Crash is an optimistic, happy-go-lucky type of character, and Makoto does seem like an optimistic dude, so I think it totally works. Also, I should point out that this man orders a deluxe fruit ramen. So, you know, he's not the most serious man in the world. The other design slash character that I want to talk about is Takeshi King Ondo. Now, King is a king. I don't know if you can tell by my tone of voice, but I friggin' love this dude, man. He's like, he's sort of like a thug version of Victor, and y'all already know you can't have a white-haired protagonist, or not, maybe not even protagonist, you can't have a white-haired character with like the hair parted to the one side and not have me think of Victor. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do it. I've seen so many shows do this, and I'm like, look, it's blank Victor, and I can't help it. So now I'm like, look, it's Mob Boss Victor. Like, I can't help it. But yeah, King, I will say, is distinguishable from Victor in as much as, like, they're not the same dude. It's just that the hair immediately made me think of Victor from Yuri on Ice. And I will say too, the hair, usually with white, it's meant to indicate innocence and purity. And I guess, like, to an extent, we might see that King is like a pure-hearted mob boss. Like, he does have good intentions, but at the end of the day, he is, you know, he's in charge of this gang. So of course he's gonna have to be sort of pure in, like, when I say pure gang leader, he is gonna have to do some nefarious stuff, but maybe his heart is still in the right place at the end of the day. I'm not super sure. However, I will say that when it comes to a character design, I actually more so associate white hair to be more distinguished and classy. If it's on the shirt, like if it's on the shirt or clothes, I'll usually say white is meant to indicate purity or innocence. If it's with the hair, I actually more so associate it with distinguished and classy. And yeah, I do think that King is meant to exude that. Everything about the character is meant to exude this sort of like classy nature, this sophisticated nature to him. And I think that even comes down to like the blue eyes in the navy suit, right? The blue eyes meant to indicate a sort of like, and they're piercing blue eyes, so you're sort of meant to get a sense of authority from that character. Blue is a color typically associated with security and authority, so that does make a lot of sense. Like the piercing blue eyes, sort of like going right through people who he deems unworthy, showing them that he is in charge. So that authoritative nature comes through in the eyes. As for the navy suit, navy as a color typically indicates, again, a sort of secure and authoritative nature. But I also think it's meant to exude the character's confidence, right? Like, this man wears a suit, and it's a blue suit, so he feels confident in the role. He's an authority figure, and maybe to an extent a little bit passive. Like, we see him sort of interacting with the world through like a hazy kind of filter. Like, he's there, and he is a bit goofy too. Don't forget, this dude like hangs out with Makoto, and he does laugh, and he does order like a friggin' rosini with beef fillet and foie gras, which I did have to look up, I'll admit. I had never heard of that before. But this man orders this fancy-ass dish, you know, like, he is, like, a bit of a goof. There's a bit of a lighthearted nature to him, but he is a bit passive as well, you know? Like, he sort of moves through the world with a sort of, like, as I said, like, hazy but calculated sort of motion, right? So that passiveness kind of comes out in the blue suit. And I think that the character actually probably has a lot of interesting stuff to come. We see him like brawling with somebody in the OP, and the other dude's like moving with like crazy energy. He looks like Majima from Yakuza, that other dude in the OP. But with King, he still moves with that sort of grace, you know, like this hazy sort of like passive grace to the character. And I can't wait to see more from King. Can't wait to see more from Makoto and all the other characters. I don't think we'll see Mion again. I think she was just the ride-along character for the first episode. If we do, cool. I actually ended up liking her by the end. But yeah, I really, really dug this episode. I highly recommend checking it out. But with that said, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's video, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then don't forget to boop that up snoot and share if you care. And of course, as always, I have to give a big, big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names. And hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people, there are now 2 ways to do so. The first is by hitting that Patreon link in the description. For just a single $1, you can see your name float across the screen. Or for a wee bit more, you get your name in the credits. But you also get a badge next to your name in the comments and premiere chats, as well as emotes to spam in said comments and premiere chats. So if either of those options sounds cool to you, go ahead and check out the link in the description or the join button next to the sub button. It is super, super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the T Squadron. Also, if you would like to join us to see me record this gameplay footage live, you can check us out over on Twitch. I think I'll be recording gameplay every like Sunday or Monday. So yeah, check us out over on Twitch. We stream Sunday through Wednesday, usually 4 or 5 p.m. EST, right through till like 9 or 10. Or maybe like 8, depending on the day. But yeah, if that sounds fun to you, check us out over on Twitch. Boop that up, Snoop, share if you care, all that fun stuff. And until next time, you stay classy, AnyTube, and wash your dang hands.